right, confidants. Welcome to another episode of Confidently Insecure, the podcast where we are absolutely sure that we don't know everything. And this is a different episode. I don't want to take up too much time with an intro. I do know a little bit about this subject. I do know just a little bit about this episode's topic. Mostly I'm talking about things that I absolutely have no idea about. But this episode does feel like I know just a little bit because I have been talking to a young girl named Darragh Reese's mother, Shannon, and she is here joined with us today. And I don't want to take up too much time for an intro. I want to just go ahead and introduce you. Of course, you and I have become very fast friends over the last week. Dare I say family. I feel like we are a kindred spirits in a way of soul and just like no filter, human, real, like you have no filter either when it comes to expressing your emotion. And I was like, this woman's strength is like, okay, I'm going to already start crying. I'm already start complimenting you. So let me just give the breakdown to the listeners. So Darragh Reese was 13 years old. She's 14 now. She's about to turn 15 soon. She was 13 years old when she was wrongfully arrested for a crime a crime that was never committed. And it was all during a mental health crisis when she was in the middle of mania and psychosis. And the last year of your life, it'll be 1 year actually in 3 days that she's been gone. And the last year of your life has been an absolute fucking nightmare horror story for any mother family to watch their daughter, who 13 at the time, now 14-year-old, has had to go through. The injustice of the system. You live in Coos Bay, up in Myrtle Point in Oregon, which I think a lot of people think of Portland, liberal town. Like, we are uncovering so much ass backward, fucked up, systematic shit that I told Shannon, you know, we're doing a larger piece of work to try and make this a lot louder. But I think first step is first, get on the podcast. Let's talk to as many fucking people as we can to get just as enraged as we are. Let's talk. Shannon, hi. I love you. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good morning, Kelsey. Good morning.
How are you? I know that's a loaded question, but I know today you're actually getting ready for a protest and a rally. And
yes.
Tell me how you're feeling. Where's your mind space?
I actually feel good. You know, I'd say the last week, we've just had so much happen and so much exposure with Darragh's case that it's the first time that we feel hopeful. We've felt hopeful in the last year, but then we always get let down. And this time it's just building momentum, and people are finally listening. And so there's hope that we can get our daughter out of prison.
Exactly. So I want to also just briefly tell some like bullet points of the story. In July 8th of 2019, Darragh had been completely yanked off of the antidepressant, mood stabilizing drug Prozac. She was 95 pounds at the time. She had been on it for a couple months, enough to be in her system, and she was on a very high adult dosage of 40 milligrams. And at the recommendation of a local pediatrician who you guys trusted and knew to be her doctor, yanked her off cold turkey of this medication. And 3 days later, as if right on fucking schedule, which is exactly about how long it takes, Darragh went to a manic psychosis for the first time ever. And at 4 a.m, she needed a cry for help. She had suicidal ideologies. We know that she has a history of mood disorder and depression in the past and self-harm, which we will be able to get into in a moment. And in her mind, she, you know, this is all stuff Shannon and I have talked about. She, in her mind, her psychosis was telling her that she needed to end her own life. And her psychosis way of getting help and a cry for help in your attention was to take some gasoline from the lawnmower outside and pour a very tiny square, 4 by 4 inches, not even an entire square foot, of gasoline on the floor of your house. And she never lit it. She never intended to light it. In her mind, she says that she believed it was going to wake you up, that she thought in her head she was screaming your guys' name and you guys weren't coming.
Exactly.
And that the only way she could get your attention was to do something drastic. And your husband woke up, Soraya's father woke up, came out, knew something was wrong. This is 4 a.m. He found Soraya just sitting cross-legged on the floor, completely in a daze, and knew something was wrong, woke you up, and you guys did what you had been told to do a million times, which was call the crisis center, the Coos Health and Wellness Crisis Center. And so that's just where I want to like tee it off. And then I want to get into what happened next. So you woke up, it's 4 a.m. Your husband's like, something's wrong with Soraya. And you had dealt a little bit with her mental health issues in the past. Talk me through that morning.
They had been the last couple weeks of being on that medication before she got yanked off of it. We had noticed her behaviors escalating. She was getting more erratic. The morning that this happened, when I walked out into the living room, I got scared because I was looking at my daughter. I could see her, but she was vacant. There was nobody in. It scared me to see her. I knew she was checked out. For the last year, they had been telling us, call the Coos County crisis response team at Coos Health and Wellness. They will come out any time of day, 24 hours
they're
to come and de-escalate a situation, talk Soraya down from her mania, whatever.
And that's exactly what we as people have been fighting for, especially with these protests recently, is that we've been asking for this resource. We've been asking for a place where we can call the 24-hour hotline, say, this is not something we need police intervention for. We need a crisis counselor to come to our house. And so that's what you were told to do over and over again if anything happened to her in terms of her mental
behaviors
health.
Escalating, her having suicidal ideations. If we just needed help, there's so few resources in Coos County. So we were really relying on them. We really trusted that they were going to come. And they called the police. They sent the police to our house. I don't know why the police came to our house. I told them what she was doing. I told them how she looked. I don't even remember how cops got called. They kept saying, Mom called the police. Mom called the police. No, Mom did not call the police. Mom
you would
called
never
Coos
call
Health and Wellness.
the cops on your daughter.
I would never call the cops on Soraya ever.
No, not in that situation. And
it wasn't a criminal.
Right.
It wasn't a criminal matter.
No crime
it was
occurred.
Oh my God, Soraya needs help matter. It wasn't she's trying to burn the goddamn shouse down. It was
and did you
she needs help.
Did you at all feel like your life, or you also have another daughter, Soraya's sister, she's younger. She's so fucking cute.
Piper.
Piper,
so funny.
With a Y, which I like. She was there as well. Soraya's younger sister. She was what, 4?
She was 3.
3 at the time. And did you at all feel like your life was in danger?
Not
She's 95
even for
pounds.
1 second. No.
You have a very strong husband who
think we weren't scared for us at all. We were scared for her.
Right.
And then when the police came, that just made it 10 times worse.
So tell me about how the police entered.
So Aaron Gilbert from Myrtle Point Police Department, he entered first with his gun drawn out of his holster. He came down his hallway, or he came down my hallway, announced himself that he was there. Soraya was standing at the end of the hallway, and he walked right up to her, and he said, I need you to place your hand behind your back. I'm going to put these handcuffs on you for your own safety. And he marched her out of the house. And
so they had clearly been updated on some form of the situation from Coos Health and Wellness.
Right.
Probably told that there is a mentally unstable person in the house who might be a harm to themselves or others. And they enter not with empathy or understanding. They're going in with, this girl has gasoline. There's a house full of a family. We must be here to assess a crime. The first thing to do is take a 95-pound girl and put her in handcuffs in front of her entire family and take her out of her
in front of her little
house.
Sister.
In front of her 3-year-old sister, who I'm sure, we'll get into the trauma that, the PTSD that she has. But so I'm going to fast forward just for a second to let the confidants know and the listeners of this podcast that Soraya was charged with 3 counts of attempted homicide and 5 counts of arson, though a crime did not occur. They did not call the cops, and her parents and the owners of the house did not want to press charges. So I just want to tell people that that's what happened. And she was sentenced to 11 years in juvenile prison without the possibility of parole until she is 25 years old. So that's where we're heading with this. I just want you to let that sink in, listeners. A 13-year-old girl going through psychosis. I get so emotional. Like, I know I have not like really like, this isn't about me, but I'm just trying to imagine not only your position and your family's position, but her.
I know. Anyone
who has dealt with psychosis, which I have dealt with very intimately with someone very close to me in my life, where they do not recall, there is many, many studies done of hallucinations, delusions, false memories, very, very strong false memories, complete blackout, complete no recollection of the psychosis. People confuse it a little bit with like a schizophrenic symptom where people will think they're someone else or they're very paranoid. I have someone in my life who the last time they went into psychosis, they thought they were a British officer who was being spied on by the place that they were at and was speaking to me in a British accent. And it lasted 48 hours. This is on high doses of lithium at a mental health center. And they still, even through the mental health centers, drugs, and doctors still believed that this was their truth in psychosis. And when they came out of it, completely fine, unharmed, completely back to normal, was just like, what? Like, It's like hearing stories about yourself. So I just want to like reiterate to people the state that Soraya must have been in to then be taken from her safe space, her family, her home, into the cop car of strangers, and then taken to juvenile prison, a holding center, a detention center. She was held for 24, what was it?
23 days before we were allowed to see her or talk to her again.
Whew.
Yeah. 23 days.
23 days without being able to talk to your 13-year-old daughter who just had her first manic episode ever.
Yep.
When I think arguably the thing that she needs the most is her mom in that moment.
Yeah. So, I just talked to Soraya last night and I asked her, like, tell me about that night. Tell me about that morning. Soraya, what do you remember? She doesn't remember the event. She remembers that she confessed, but doesn't remember anything that she said, doesn't remember being transported to jail. She said herself, she like woke up a couple of weeks after she was in there.
Yeah.
And we have the supporting documents for that, but they will not list. They will not even entertain the idea she was in psychosis.
She was, I want to go just like, I fast forwarded a little bit because I'm like, I need people to know how fucked up this gets, and it gets even more fucked up, is that when the cops showed up, a ambulance showed up to your house, a cop car, there was the sheriffs, there was the police department, there was the police, the sheriff, ambulance, and a fire truck. And when your daughter's taken out of your house, of course, you're obviously in a state of hyper emotion, shock, absolutely. And you don't even know where she's going. You think she's maybe getting put in the ambulance because the paramedics did take her vitals. Yes. I thought they were taking her to the hospital. Is what we thought that was going to happen. But then they said that we needed to follow them to the police station. And so So we just went on autopilot. You just followed. Okay, right. I'm right behind you. I'll follow. Were you able to take Piper with you guys? Is that my best friend came and picked Piper up. Good. It took her about an hour to get there. You know, she had to come from North Bend to Myrtle Point. She had her own kids. She had to wake up at 4 a.m. But she came and took Pi. Whose health and wellness, I want to reiterate, because that's someone on our list of that we want to take accountability for some of this, wrote in a report and an email to you that the crisis response team that was supposed to come take Soraya to a safe space should have came and got her taken her to an emergency room because in those states of mania and psychosis, should have taken her vitals and assessed the situation because that's what they are trained to do.
Right.
Instead, they lose communication with the police and they actually lose her within the system of not being sure where she ended up because it was 4 a.m. and their response team did not want to go handle it. Now, some might argue, of course, you want to play devil's advocate a little bit with some of the legality stuff because it's so fucked up, is you might assume Coos Health and Wellness heard of the gasoline on the floor and they think a crime is occurring. Therefore, you need police intervention, which fine. Right. If you're a crisis center that can't handle suspected violence during a manic episode, then maybe you shouldn't be a fucking crisis response counselor team. Like, because if you think you're going to come in and people are singing Kumbaya and holding hands and meditating,
right,
you're part of the problem. So they come in and they lose her in the police system. And the police actually, Coos Health and Wellness thought that the police were going to take her to the emergency room, but they send you an email saying,
I found it actually in her file. I found the document in her file tucked way in the bottom of it.
So they didn't even tell you that they thought they said she did not arrive to the emergency room at the Bay Area.
They said that they got a call from mom. There had been an incident with Soraya. Myrtle Point PD responded. They were told, we don't know who called the police, in air quotes. I'm air quoting here, guys. They don't know who called the police, but the police told them that they had enough officers to transport Soraya to Bay Area Hospital.
And they let that go.
That the child didn't, she's not at Bay Area Hospital. They're not sure where she is. They will follow up in the morning.
They'll follow up in the morning as if you have that luxury and time. You meanwhile are already following the police to the police station. You know where she is, but the system that was supposed to be taking care of her did not know where she was. And the police, they said, the Health and Wellness Center themselves say that the police responded saying that they had enough units to bring her to the hospital. So even if you do want to use the argument that Coos Health and Wellness was scared that she was an arson and trying to kill her parents and family, they still believe that she was going to an emergency room to be assessed properly.
Yes.
What is her mental state? And not to mention her mental health history in the past. This isn't some like out of the blue, like out of nowhere arson. She had
Health and Wellness responded one time. Piper, honey. Shh.
Piper.
That's Piper. Coos Health and Wellness came to Soraya's high school in Myrtle Point one day. Soraya had told a kid there that she planned on killing herself that weekend. I got a call while I was at work and they said, we have a crisis response team responding to Myrtle Point. Do we have your permission to talk to her? I drove 90 miles an hour with my hazards on to get there, and they had de-escalated her, calmed her down. We worked out an impromptu safety plan, and what are we going to do should something occur? And so they had followed through.
They know who she is.
They knew who she was.
And mind you, the town you live in.
Every week for counseling for the prior year, so they all knew who Soraya was.
And by the way, we've tried calling them many times since I've met with Shannon. We have a Zoom like telethon of calling all these people, and they are like, who? Can you spell it out for me? This is a very small town.
Very, yeah.
Everyone knows each other's name. This is not it's a refusal of accountability, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So Coos Health and Wellness, we see you. We're fucking, we demand to know what happened there. And even if you want to blame the violent behavior of someone,
the police should have came as an assist. If they were worried about it, you have the police show up and they assist the crisis.
Exactly.
It was never a police situation for them to show up with no counselors at all.
Exactly. So they take Soraya, and little do you know that she has been read her Miranda rights without you present. She's 13 years old in a state of psychosis. They take her to the police station where you're able to sit with her for a moment before
until an officer showed up from Coos Bay.
And how is that moment? Because I remember you telling me it's like a shit show.
He walked in the room.
How was Soraya in that moment?
Soraya was calm and quiet, but she was angry because she thought I called the police on her. She didn't want to talk to me.
Which they were telling her, yeah.
I told her, I love you. Everything's okay. And she said, stop, don't talk to me. She was upset with me. So this officer Ritz walks in and he looked at Soraya and he said, you've been read your Miranda rights. And I looked at him in shock and I said, wait, is she under arrest? And he said, yes, she is. And then he asked Soraya if she wanted me in the room with her.
Of course
and
not.
she said no.
Of course not.
I didn't know.
She thinks you called the cops on her.
Exactly. I didn't know that if they're 13, they have to have a parent or lawyer present in the room. There was no one there making sure that any of us knew our rights. You know,
I said this to like Shannon when we very first met, is like, again, you have to look at it a little bit from devil's advocate side, right? Like,
right.
Even let's say Soraya's not in psychosis. Let's say she's having just a bad mental health morning and she thinks her mother, who's been nothing but support for her for the last year, has betrayed her.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, I know me as an emotional, hormonal, cunty little teenager, and I've talked about that on this podcast before, that I was going fucking through it at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you would want your mom in the room in that moment? No way.
Mm-mm.
No way. Teenagers are so sensitive, so anti-authority, so it's such a convoluted relationship at that age, even if you have the best of relationships with your daughter, which you did and do, right? And to hear that your daughter,
we had our moments.
Of course.
We had our moments, but yeah, for the most part, her and I were a pretty tight group.
And again, like, why wouldn't you? When this mental health stuff is showing up, when these hormones are showing up, you know, Soraya was going through a lot at school. She was being bullied. I don't think we've even mentioned that Soraya's biracial. Mm-hmm. She is, how do I say this? Like, Black presenting, I guess. Like, even though she's biracial, like, you can tell she's Black, whereas Piper is very white presenting. Like, I don't even know if that's the proper term, but Soraya had been bullied for a long time, being called the N-word, being told she was ugly, that she should go kill herself because she looks different than the majority white population that lives in your area. And this is
I believe it's 97% white in our county. I believe the minority is 0.03%. So Soraya was a very small part, and that's our county. That's not just the city. That's our whole county, which expands to like 35,000 people.
And tell me about that bullying past, like that harassment before this incident.
You know, it started out, Soraya was strong and she was able to take it, come home, talk to me about it, process it. And then we dyed her hair. She wanted long, straight, blonde hair. You know, you always want what you can't have.
Yeah.
And so we dyed her hair and her hair got really brittle and it kind of just melted off of her head. And she had to get a haircut, like buzzed up on one side. And then it got really, really bad for Soraya.
Yeah, your hair, that's your identity.
It broke something in her. You know, she walked around for a couple months with a hoodie, with a hood on. She would never take that hood off. She started wearing black, and then she started cutting herself. The first time she cut herself, she came to me and she told me about it. Okay, well, we'll deal with this. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to talk to someone about it. And then she started cutting herself worse and worse. She swears she overdosed on Tylenol one night, but I can't verify that. She didn't tell, she didn't say that until later. It was hurting really badly.
Really bad. In need of help.
So we tried to get her in to Coos Health and Wellness for counseling, but we were waitlisted. There's not enough providers there. This area is very depressed economically and in every other way. There's a lot of mental illness around here. And so they're just understaffed. They couldn't get us in. There had been that's the reason why she got on antidepressants to begin with, was that this is not something, again, that was out of the blue, completely insane paranoia behavior. This was, she's had a history of needing help. We tried for a year with counseling, and then when it just was not helping her, then we tried the antidepressant. We were just pretty much desperate at that point.
So you're not like anti-mental health support. You saw, you're white. You saw your daughter being bullied, and as a mother, you're doing everything you possibly can within your reach to find a way to make her comfortable in that age.
We had her in sports and gymnastics, and we tried to just keep her busy, and it just didn't help her at all. So middle of May, almost the end of the school year, 6th grade, Soraya found a razor blade on the floor at the school, and she slit her wrists. I had already been on my way to the school to pick her up. It's about 6 blocks away. So I got there when it happened. The principal pulls me into his office and, okay, we have a situation. I took her right to the hospital. They were going to admit her that day for a psych watch, but she wanted to go home, and I kind of stopped working that day. I have my own business, so I don't have to be here, thank God.
Yeah.
And I stayed home with her, and we got through it. The very next day after Soraya tried to kill herself, they got her into therapy. Wow. So then she went every single Wednesday. Yeah. Her pediatrician, when we started this antidepressant, her pediatrician was great. It was the on-call pediatrician that yanked her off. Her pediatrician was gone for 4th of July holiday, and it was an on-call doctor that said, no, she doesn't need to be weaned off. We were literally waiting until 8 o'clock Monday morning to go see her pediatrician and demand she get her medication back. And this happened at 4 a.m. So we were 4 hours too late.
And we had talked a little bit about Soraya's therapy during that year. And your husband kind of referred to it as like the play date, because it didn't feel like things were being done properly. Like, not only are the resources limited, but then you're stuck with whatever they give you, and hopefully she's getting through it. And
when we would go to family sessions and we would, listen to Soraya, she would deflect 40 out of 60 minutes. She never connected with this counselor, and we told her several times we didn't think that this was a good fit. We think maybe Soraya needs to try a different counselor. The counselor-client bond is tricky. You have to find someone that you click with, and Kelly Olick was her counselor, and she was not willing to give that up.
Is that a white woman?
Fine. Yes.
So I want to ask a little bit about like how identity plays into this too, right? Because you're thrown into then a system where no one looks like you, no one can understand you. She's not able to lean into her Black side in a way that is physically relatable around her. Did her identity ever come up? Like, I have to imagine raising children that are biracial is already tough. And then to put it in your county that is like historically racist, which we will get into.
A lot of things we've noticed, that the Black community didn't accept her because she's half white. The white community wasn't entirely accepting because she's half Black. And then add on top of it that Soraya is pansexual. And that just was like the icing on the cake.
I'm so proud of you for knowing what that is.
Oh, she taught me. Soraya taught me.
Yes.
And I don't care who she loves as long as they love her back. That's what every parent wants. I don't care if it's a man or a woman. I just want her to be loved. That's all. And to be happy and to be herself.
So imagine that she's got all of this shit piling on top of her. I call shit, but like, what is her life and her identity and her truth, her authentic life is being ostracized and picked on and completely torn down. And yet, here you are at home with her on the couch, understanding what pansexual means. Like, you are an incredible fucking mother and a support system that, I get my strength from you. Like, I don't know how you are just an endless well of fight, but I have to imagine that
I don't feel it. I just get up and do it every day because I don't know what else to do. And she's been gone a year. It's enough. We're ready for her to get out of that prison, go to an inpatient residential facility, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. I'm skipping.
Well, no, I think that's important to note. Like, that kind of can lead us back into you guys at the police station, because
we've had a lot of people say to us, Soraya needs to be held accountable for what she did.
Of course.
Soraya needs to be, okay, we understand that. We very much understand that
she
what
needs to be
Soraya
held accountable for
could have potentially been dangerous.
Right.
Had she, for some reason, thought lighting that was a good idea, it could have been dangerous. However, We're not asking for Soraya to get out of prison and come home tomorrow.
No,
we're asking
you
for
do
them.
not want that.
No,
it would not be safe. You have
it's
adamantly
not
stated
safe for her.
We're not asking her to be let go willy-nilly back into the world. We'll deal with her. You know,
yes,
you know she needs help. You know she needs treatment long-term in an inpatient facility.
Yep.
You know this.
I do know
and
that.
you're advocating for it.
Yep. We need the help from professionals.
Exactly.
You know, adults have a hard time getting out of prison and coming home, and children is even worse. And then,
because
you know,
everything is so
a
hidden
lot
and
of
concealed.
research, there's a 75% recidivism rate when children are released from corrections. 75% chance they'll be rearrested within 3 years. So she's already being set up to fail in that aspect. What we want is the legalities and the charges that were hanging over her to be
dropped.
Yes, that's the right word.
I know
dropped.
You have to be careful, but
and we want her to be admitted into a inpatient residential
long
facility.
Term.
Which, after she was arrested, that's what everybody told us she was going to.
Yes. Okay. So let's go
residential.
Let's go back to her getting pulled away from you to be read. You know, she had already been read her Miranda rights. She's going to confess under psychosis, which they still don't really believe in, take accountability for, don't have education on, even though you had told them her history, told them about the antidepressants. So when you are separated from her at that moment, you don't see her or talk to her again for 23 days. And
they let me give her a hug before they took her to detention. I sat there at the police station.
And they told you she's being arrested for a crime?
Yeah.
And
I didn't know the charges yet, but they told me that they were arresting her. He sat in a room and he talked with her it felt like forever. I'm not sure how long it actually was.
Hours, yeah.
Everything's in such little bits and pieces from that morning.
It's overwhelming.
So scattered. Yeah.
It's overwhelming. But she, in psychosis, confessed at that time that she wanted to hurt.
He asked her questions and she was like, yeah, I was going to kill him. I was going to hack him up with a machete that we don't have. I mean, we don't own a machete. Where was she going to get a machete from?
Right.
I'm not sure the full extent of what she said because I haven't seen the tape of it.
The point is that she's saying things that they're
she said that she said we beat her. You know, we gave her hot sauce or something. I don't know. There was a huge hot sauce incident that turned into a massive
told me about.
Shit show
that was
CPS.
Like hilarious.
Yeah. It turned into a 7-month battle with Child Protective Services.
So
but
at
we
that
finally
moment,
won.
Right. So at that moment they take her and they don't allow you to see or speak to her because then the law steps in, the DA steps in and has deemed you guys victims of a crime.
Yep.
You're not wanting to press charges. The owner of your house does not want to press charges. But it is now the state is saying you guys are the victim. You are not allowed to talk to the perpetrator. Therefore, we are going to now pursue a complaint, you know, which is what bringing the what the crimes are, what they're accusing her of to light, which is when did you hear about the charges?
I don't know if it was that day or the next day.
So it was very quickly after.
Yes.
Because she's in a state of psychosis. She's saying, yes, I want to murder them. Yes. And she's saying yes because they're asking her these questions.
Yep.
She also is saying things, and here's where we know it's untrue, because CPS then comes after you and your husband to take custody of her because of what Soraya has said under psychosis.
Yep. And
through a 7-month battle is proved false.
Yep. You
guys won against CPS, yet Soraya's, which should right there and then should have said, you know, this is a 13-year-old girl who, you know, you and I have talked about the word what did you say, like a compulsive liar, but realizing that that is under the mental health issue. That is under the underlying, is that we cannot be taking what Soraya is saying in these states under oath to be used against her in court when you prove that what she's saying is untrue.
Yes.
So the hot sauce thing, it's so
She
stupid.
wrote a letter in her own defense as well. She wrote a couple of them to CPS, and they still tried to found us for these allegations. And she had been off of medication and back to her clear head by the time she wrote these. And she's like, I'm being factual. Here's what happened. I'm sorry. I made this stuff up and I shouldn't have. And, nobody ever listens to a kid. I didn't think anything would happen.
And in that moment, like, her brain is telling her to cry for help. So like, super quickly, the hot sauce thing is so funny and stupid, is that your youngest daughter tried hot sauce like accidentally, and it was super hot, and it became this like big funny thing that she was like running around like, oh, it's hot, hot, hot. So like, as a joke, you and your family, instead of saying like, go to your room or you're grounded, it would be like, go to your room or hot sauce. And it became this like funny,
do you want some hot sauce? That's what we'll say.
Are you trying to get hot sauce?
Yeah.
Like, with like,
we've never given them hot sauce, for the record. We've never given them hot sauce.
And so that's what she was talking about when she was saying that you guys were abusing her, was that hot sauce was her punishment, which is not true.
No. But in the state of Oregon, you are not allowed to force feed anything into your child's mouth. Whether it's hot sauce or soap or they did.
Right. So let's talk, like, before going back to the 23 days that you didn't get to see her and you were deemed victims, and then so you're deemed victims, and then also CPS is coming at you for being perpetrators. So you're being pegged as two things
within days
of each other. And when CPS comes, are you able to get legal help to fight them?
We didn't need it. I had all of the, I signed all the records releases for this woman to get the same information. It took me a couple of days of running around and getting medical records and just writing a letter, and I could disprove every single thing she said, and they unfounded everything. But they really drug it out. She didn't have her report done for 4 months.
And that's my other point, is like, during this time, she's yanked off her medication. We don't know how long. I know people that have been in psychosis for 2 to 3 months at a time, but we also don't know, because you lost temporary like supervision and custody of her during this whole time. You don't know then what the detention center is putting her on medication wise. We don't even know if she was getting the proper treatment in there. Are they giving her lithium? Are they letting her sit through her psychosis? They didn't give her
anything. They didn't treat her at all. Not with anything. After she had been in there a couple of months, she had a psych eval with Dr. Parikh. I believe all he gave her was something to help her sleep.
Right, like a Benadryl. She was
having a hard time sleeping. And then that medication gave her nightmares. So then they add another medication to stop the nightmares. And once we saw what the Prozac did, now I'm a little sketched of medication. I'd like to be able to research it before they pump it into my daughter. So
you lost all of that right to learn.
I did. About that. Yeah.
They were doing what they got.
What she takes. And then now in the state of Oregon, now that she's 14, it's like the age of consent for medical information. So now that she's 14, unless she signs a release, which she has no problem doing, but the prison makes it so damn difficult to make sure that release gets signed every 30
days. It's not like a one-time thing.
No,
it's every 30 days. Soraya has to sign. And imagine with COVID, people working remotely, you're not available to come in. They're making it impossible for you to get records. And I want to ask, because I just want to make this clear for myself, did you lose custody of Soraya?
Yes.
How did you lose custody of her?
I had custody of her until they did sentencing, and then she went to the custody of OIA. But because
which is
Oregon Youth Authority.
Okay.
But because we were deemed victims, we weren't allowed to talk to her about the case at all. We had to keep it really, really PG and generic.
This is through calls, FaceTimes, right?
They would have yanked our visits at that juvenile detention center so fast.
So you go through like the 23 days, and every time you're talking to her, she's tired. She's kind of still hazy out of it. Like, is there any point during, the 7 months that you're going through the CPS stuff and also just the surface level conversations that you are able to tell about how she's feeling through all of this?
I know at the beginning there's documents at the Douglas County Juvenile Detention Center saying that Soraya had no affect for 2 weeks.
Which means she's completely catatonic.
Yeah, she was just tired. She wasn't happy, wasn't sad, wasn't the guy that they gave her as her probation officer, Ken Smith, at the Coos County Juvenile Probation Department, we had to have a meeting in his office. My husband just reminded me this yesterday. Ken Smith said himself that it was so bizarre when Soraya was in his office before they transferred her, because most kids are crying and most kids are scared and most kids are upset. And Soraya just sat there. She didn't say anything. She was just said she's tired. She was tired, and they transported her to the jail. So it was
And
3
sleep
weeks later.
after psychosis, by the way, is like the most important thing for someone to come out of it, is that like they need to be able to get full
Sleep.
rest. And I imagine in a detention center, they're not letting Soraya sleep in and get comfortable. And you know, they're treating her as a prisoner. At this point, she has been deemed property of the state, and she is under routine of a juvenile prison. And juvenile prison is prison. I want to make that very clear. It is prison. So let's talk about her turning 14. And
She turned 14 while she was in jail.
And this makes it difficult because the age of consent for medical release, she could have kept everything from you. She could have been like, fuck my mom. I still think she fucked me over. I'm just going to, you know, she didn't do that. She wanted you guys to be involved. She wanted help. She wanted to sign the releases over. She wanted to understand what the fuck was happening to her.
Skipping back just a little bit.
Of course.
So after the 3 weeks was over and we got to talk to Soraya again, Soraya was scared. And continuously, the 3.5 months that she was in there, she was sexually harassed like you would not believe. I think she was the only girl in there with a bunch of teenage boys. She was 13 years old. The staff would make fun of kids with mental illness, and they would openly talk shit about the kids that self-harmed. Soraya said it was making her worse and worse and worse. She wanted out of there. So when she ended up taking the plea deal, when her lawyer told her take the plea or sit in jail longer, she really just wanted out. She didn't care. She wanted out of that detention center.
So let's talk about that moment, because that I feel like is really crucial. This is a very crucial part of the way that they handled this. You were able to get a woman named
Kate Dyer.
Kathleen Dyer, if you want to look her up on the bar, Kate Dyer. You looked her up, and according to her website and her history, she does.
I knew her prior to this.
Oh my God,
I knew who Kate was prior.
She
so
does.
We called her, and she said, "I'll help."
Former prosecutor. She used to be on the other side, but she also deals with this criminal defense. And she said she would help you guys out. So you're thinking we have someone on our side who's willing to understand the mental health aspect of it, and that she will fight for, what is she promising you? Full release, lesser charges?
Was trying to get the charges lessened. I know she was trying to get the charges lessened, but then she wasn't really doing anything. She would show up for court in sweatpants, not brushed her hair. She never one time showed up with a briefcase. And so all I had to compare this to was like Law and Order, you know, what I see on TV. We've never been in court before. And I said so many times, this is not like Law and Order. You know, you have the prosecutor, Karen McClintock, who comes in looking like Devil Wears Prada every day.
She does
perfect. She's sharp. She has, you know, the perfect shoes and the little briefcase and all. She's super organized. And then here's our lawyer
in sweatpants
with
and
nothing.
Hair.
Yeah.
And I want to reiterate, like, the DA of the county, his name is Paul Frazier. That is the district attorney. He is the one who is in charge of the charges. And who Karen McClintock is the ADA, which is the assistant district attorney. She's like the deputy assistant district attorney. So she is the one underneath Paul Frazier who is bringing these charges from the state, prosecuting Soraya. And then you have Kate Dyer, who used to be a prosecutor, who I'm sure knows who Paul Frazier and Karen McClintock are, supposing to be defending your daughter. But these circles run tight. She used to be a prosecutor. She knows exactly how the other side works. She knows the tactics that they are going to use. So when it is presented that there's 3 counts of attempted homicide and 5 counts of arson, they they say they are going to do a plea deal so that it doesn't have to go to a jury trial.
Right.
That Soraya will lessen to 2 counts of attempted homicide because they deemed that she didn't actually want to hurt her little sister Piper.
Yeah.
And they will drop the 5 counts of arson because, remind you, no fucking fire or matches were even used or lit.
Yep.
We talked about it just like briefly, like that you're a smoker, and there were lighters in the house. Okay, it wasn't like she had to go searching. There
If
was a
she
fucking lighter.
wanted to light it, she would have.
It's on this coffee table. Yeah,
we have a wood stove, so we have like the big long lighters for lighting the fire starter. Yeah, she had access.
It never occurred. It never happened. So they said they were going to drop those charges if she agreed to plead to attempted assault. Is that right?
2 counts of attempted homicide in the first degree and 1 count of attempted assault 1.
What is that? Where did the assault come from?
That was for Piper. Attempted assault 1.
So that she still wanted to hurt her sister, but she didn't want to kill her.
Yeah.
Great. That makes a whole lot of fucking sense.
Yeah.
So am I wrong? When did you contact Dr. Phil's show?
2 days. No, it might have been the night that Soraya was taken in the hospital.
Wow.
We went and stayed at a hotel because, home just all of a sudden really didn't feel like home anymore. It was either the same night or the next night. So
you watch the Dr. Phil show. You take his like psychology, like
he's my at-home therapist.
Right.
Yes.
And so you reach out to them saying what has happened to Soraya. What are you hoping that they can help happen?
I was hoping that they could intervene and get Soraya sent to an inpatient psychiatric facility where she could get some help, learn coping skills, learn how to re-love herself. She was so broken.
And so you're looking for that, first of all, media attention, because your town is so fucking small and you are playing against an uphill battle. You know that this has a history, and Dr. Phil has a reputation
I've seen
for helping.
Him help so many families.
And like I personally don't watch it. Right.
Way worse than Soraya.
Well, we know all the girls that Catch Me Outside girl comes out. Like we've all seen how Dr. Phil can help with kids. And so you reach out and they fucking respond and they say
within 2 weeks, I wrote to them thinking honestly that it was a pipe dream. He gets so many millions of letters, and I've heard him tell guests, this mom unfortunately wrote to me 14 times, and I never in a million years thought that they would respond, and they responded within 2 weeks.
Which just goes to show you that, like, from a producing entertainment standpoint, like to play devil's advocate, like if they're looking at it from an entertainment perspective of how can they get views, they're not going to take a case that they don't think they can't help in.
Right.
So for them within 2 weeks to reach back out to you and say, like, we're willing to help, that just goes to show you from a producerial standpoint that they think this is going to be something that clearly was fucked up, that they have an angle on to look like a hero, right? They're never going to villainize Dr. Phil, just to show from like the business side of things. For them to respond was a big deal. So you get that letter and you're like, oh my gosh.
So I went to her probation officer, Ken Smith. His boss is Brian Baird. He runs the juvenile.
He's on our list.
The juvenile, yes, he's on our list.
He's on our list, baby.
They told me that Soraya would not be able to participate in the show while there was ongoing legal proceedings.
That's what her probation officer told me.
And I'm like, what? I see people on the show that are like in the
middle of it.
Yes, in the middle of it, and Dr. Phil steps in and he gets them help, and they dodge jail. And
they have tons of
the best lawyers in the world. Yes. So we had to wait a couple of months and figure out what was going on with the legalities. The Dr. Phil show sent us a letter, and they wanted Soraya to appear on the show on October 16th in order to potentially offer her the best mental health treatment in the country. That's almost verbatim what the letter says from them. They wanted to help her.
And you're going to the Brian Baird thing.
Yes.
Look.
Yes.
And he's saying, no, I want her to pay for her crimes.
He would not send the legal paperwork needed to have Soraya on the show to the show. And instead, the very next day, they sentenced her to prison, October 17th. When all of this was happening, and I'm calling around to inpatient facilities. And the only thing I kept hearing was fiscal responsibility. That's like
What does
all
that
that the
mean?
state cared about. Who's going to pay for it? Who's
Mm.
going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for this? So it doesn't make any sense to me why they would choose to
Ignore the help.
throw Soraya in prison when we could have had free help from Dr. Phil that didn't cost the state anything. But every place that I called, they're like, oh, well, that's, that treatment center, that's $10,000 a day or $1,000 a day, excuse me.
It is.
$1,000 a day for treatment.
30 days in an inpatient residential treatment, no matter where you are in the country, averages at $30,000. That is out of state tuition. For
Everyone, even, Kate, Karen, Ken, every single person that was involved,
these guys
had told us that Soraya needed to go to an inpatient psychiatric facility. Well, then, I don't know, a week before the sentencing where they sentenced her away, they said, well, no, she's going to go to the state training school, which is where she's at now. They call it the training school. It's a prison. You can't get in and out. Everything is locked. You have to go through security, metal detectors. You have to get wanded down, no key, nothing metal. They won't even call it a prison. They don't call it a prison at all.
Of course not.
No,
is it a private facility, like publicly funded or privately? Do you know?
I don't know.
We'll look it up because that also is something that they have to keep those full. So they see a little black girl who's causing
Oak Creek Correctional
trouble.
Facility in Albany.
So the Dr. Phil show Dream is slowly fading, and they're starting to get wind that big media attention is coming their way. And they go, how do we resolve this? Let's move the sentencing up to the next fucking day.
Yep.
Let's get this over with and done. So you're allowed at this point to come to the court case, right?
Yes. Yep. We went to all of the court dates. Every single time that they had Soraya appear in person, I asked the judge if I could hug my daughter. The DA, everybody, the lawyers, they all said they've never seen a judge say yes. But every judge let us hug our daughter.
Your relationship with her attorney is so convoluted because you weren't allowed to speak with her because of the CPS situation for 7 months.
Right.
And she's supposed to be doing her job of making sure that Soraya's voice is heard. And your communication with her is so limited because of this distance that the state put between you guys, that the only knowledge of that you had that was going to be Soraya's defense was that Kate asked you to help get medical records, which means you're thinking, I'm giving her all of the medical records so she can use this as a defense to show that she's mentally ill.
She took the medical records and she set up a interview with the forensic psychiatrist. Dr. Eric Morrell down in Medford came and saw Soraya. It was 7-8 weeks after she had been in jail. And I kept saying, what is taking so long? How can you determine her frame of mind at the time of incident?
That much later.
All of this time later, she's out of it now. The way that the system is set up, it's not set up to help the kids that go into it. No, instead they penalize the mentally ill, reinforcing the stigma that the mentally ill are dangerous.
Ooh, sis.
It is not she's not dangerous. She's a danger to herself. She's never been a danger to any of us, and she's a danger to herself because these assholes made her hate herself.
Yes.
Every bad parent that taught their kid it's okay to hate is partially responsible for this today.
And we don't emphasize the angle enough about Black Lives Matter in this situation because it took the death of George Floyd and the activism and the protest that I have seen for me to make that connection even. I, didn't really consider her biraciality, I don't know if that's a word, in the beginning. I was just mentally ill. I'm a big advocate for mental health. You know this, my listeners know this. That's what kind of drew me to this. But then once I was in it and, you're waving this flag of hello, why aren't we looking at what caused this? Why aren't we looking at the deeper rooted issues of what's going on in our town that absolutely have an impact and an imprint environmentally on someone's well-being to even get to that place, that all of a sudden, you know, you're doing these interviews now and you're finally getting the media attention you deserve. And so many reporters, especially local news, which I'm so fucking sick of your local news people because they're all connected, don't piss each other
They're
off.
all biased.
They're all friends. They can't get upset with the police. Mind you, this is
Yep.
such a small town. These are your neighbors. These are your friends. These are your kids,
Yep.
teachers, and fucking friends. And they cannot write clearly anything. They justified anything. And they are almost making fun of you and penalizing you for trying to bring up the racial aspect of this case.
Oh, absolutely. I can't tell you how many friends and family members and people in this community that I have lost that know us. They know us. They've known us for 14 years. I get told constantly, don't play the race card. Don't turn this into a race issue. Focus on the mental health. That's the only way that the community is going to hear you out. Well, yeah, because you want to know what happens in my community? Black men get chased by mobs of white men called racial slurs and thrown rocks at in the middle of the road where nobody stops to help them. There's a fence. We have a beautiful beach. Oregon, I'm a Pisces. I just love living by the water. They spray painted no N-word zone on a fence headed out to the beach where I can't tell you, it was there for days, Kelsey, before somebody went and pressure washed it off and got it off of there. There's been several locations here in town that have had swastikas painted on them, and they've written Hitler didn't do anything wrong. It's scary down here.
Just to paint the scene of like what you live in.
My girlfriend, Jay, is a huge advocate down here for everything that's going on. She's a QMHP.
What's that?
Well, she might not be a QMHP. That might be.
I don't know that acronym.
Qualified mental health professional.
Got it. I should know that.
She is a professional in the mental health field, but I'm not sure if that's her exact title. She's getting death threats. They had to move 2 hours away because people were threatening to kill her and her family because she is biracial and also LGBTQ+. It's like the two things that are so unwanted here, but no one wants to admit that there's a problem.
And she's an adult.
Yes.
And she had to physically move.
Yep.
Like, God forbid we think, like...
Real quick, just taking a breather, I want to tell you about BetterHelp. You know, I'm always ranting and raving about BetterHelp being the most affordable therapy online for you to do whenever, however you want, in the comfortability of your own home. They are licensed professional counselors who specialize in family conflicts, LGBT matters, depression, stress, my favorite, anxiety, sleeping, trauma, relationships, self-esteem, and anything you share is completely confidential. It is convenient, professional, affordable. I love my therapist. We talk every single week. And if you don't like your therapist that they pair you with, guess what? They make it free and easy to change counselors whenever you want. In fact, so many people recently have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. So I want you to start living a happier life, okay? Because you guys are my confidants. I want you to, as a listener, get 10% off your first month by visiting BetterHelp.com/CI. You will be joining over 1 million people who are taking charge of their mental health again. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/CI.
Yeah,
like, I get so emotional, like thinking about Soraya's age, like that age of her life that is so crucial. Everything feels like the biggest fucking deal in the world, that there is nothing outside of this moment in your life. Like, this is, every day is so weighted and so dramatic. Like, I remember being in that. I was not out publicly. I mean, like, you know, to my friends maybe, but I was not out publicly. Fucking Soraya's Instagram proudly states that she is pansexual. And to imagine being a little Black girl in this time, I cannot fathom. And it's not like you guys live in LA where people know it's clearly wrong.
Right.
She's
No.
being surrounded by reinforced racism growing up in that.
Yep. Yep.
It like I keep having to like hold back my foot under the table. They're both going like 100 miles an hour because like
So
I'm
is
just having a
mine.
physical reaction to this of like, I do not want to get emotional because I need to be strong for you because you have been strong for me. But like, I am so fucking sad. Like,
Me
I
too.
am so fucking sad that she's not getting the help that she so clearly fucking
Oh, they're
has
helping
been
her right now.
asked for.
They have her so chemically restrained right now. She's on like 4 different medications. And every time I talk to her, Soraya, how are you feeling? I'm tired. That's all she ever says is she's tired. They have her so, I think that I grew up in the system and we were medicated as well. You had to take some type of medication. I told Soraya she can refuse it. The prison says that they don't get in trouble if they do, but
Of
just
course.
take it. This isn't going to last forever. We're fighting. We will never stop fighting to get you out of there, where she can get real therapy and real counseling, and someone that will acknowledge what happened to her and what happened to her was wrong and can help her start on the trauma.
Fixing the fucking trauma because her
Yeah.
life is completely set up for trauma now.
Yep.
Not only with the police, but with the mental health system, with her family, with her sister, her trust in the people that are supposed to help her most.
Yep.
She's not going to fucking trust doctors or cops. She's not going to trust law enforcement. She's not going to trust authority. There is a connection that you are paying for when you pay. I did a 30-day in treatment mental health center in 2014 that you pay for one-on-one individualized time every single day from a renowned mental health professional that is so individualized treatment that I have to imagine in these jails, who knows how much these people are getting paid. I have to imagine not much, that they are grossly netting these diagnoses together that, I asked if Soraya had been diagnosed before, and it's so crucial to you that you have stated that we don't want to put labels on what it is. We know she self-harms. We know she has a history of depression. We now know she deals with mania and psychosis. Sure, that can play a part in a little bit of this. This could totally possibly be bipolar. This could also be absolutely no fucking diagnosis and a symptom of her medication being pulled. You do not have to be psychotic or bipolar or schizophrenic to have a psychotic episode off of medication. There are neuropsychiatric facilities in Los Angeles that I have connections to, who I know the head doctor whose entire career has been based on studying and understanding psychosis from people that have it without any triggers present that are physically abled. No non-housing, no LGBT matter, no medication matter. Maybe it's drug induced. Maybe it's the first time they smoke weed. Maybe it's the first time they have a heightened emotion or they're PTSD'd again. Like, I think like recognizing that to the idea of label and diagnosis cannot happen right now until she is in a place where, first of all, we can fucking wipe her system of whatever they have put her on. She can address the fucking trauma properly, and we watch it over time. When we label and diagnose these children, it is a fucking burden that they carry. Some people are like, oh, I need a diagnosis. Giving it a name doesn't treat it. Oh, great, you're bipolar. Now what? Your bipolar does not look like your bipolar, does not look like your mania, does not look like your manic depressive, does not look like your unipolar mania. Nothing. I stand by labeling and diagnosing someone that young has that person carrying an identity that is not fair, that they feel like maybe they can never grow out of. And even feeling bad here that I'm sitting here saying she's going to have trauma, that's not fair for me to say because I don't know.
She has trauma.
Right. Yeah. And like that is something
you're not assuming anything. She
has
trauma.
Right. Like it's not fair for her, first of all, to have that imprinted on her, obviously, but then to also have this such merry-go-round in the mental health system. How is she supposed to know who she fucking is?
Right.
At this point. Okay. Sorry, Andrea. I get emotional. My chest is very tight. I can tell like tears are fucking coming. I want to go back to sentencing. So you're in the courtroom. Are you surprised by the defense's
Her
tactics?
lawyer had told us what was going to happen. We knew that she was going to take the plea deal. We were under the assumption that she was going to take the plea deal and then be sentenced to an inpatient psych facility for, an indeterminate amount of time, get the help she needs, and then come home. I wrote and read a letter to the judge trying to explain some background. We didn't get a trial. There was no professionals called in, no witnesses, no character
testimony,
no nothing. Yeah, there was nothing. So I'm trying, and mind you that Megan Jaco, the judge, this was her second time seeing us. She had gotten hurt and shattered her pelvis or something. She's the juvenile judge. She was gone during this whole thing except for the last 2 court dates. So
she's not even familiar.
No, she didn't get to hear any of the things that had been said before. I really feel like if we had just stayed with Judge Combs, this would have never happened. I don't understand why Megan didn't call out inadequate counsel. I mean, I guess I don't know what a judge is. I had a friend tell me that she was bound by the plea agreement to sentence her to a certain amount of time. Okay. But then I've had legal counsel tell us that is not true.
She could have said, this is fucked up.
You are not accepting this plea. No way. She could have done something.
She could have pulled Soraya aside and said something like, were you coerced into this? Do you know all of your options? You're not allowed to talk to Soraya about that stuff. We are solely relying on Kate Dyer to make sure that Soraya knows all of her choices. And so
I had found an old prescription of Xanax. I used to have a really bad problem with Xanax. I took it prescribed for 10 years, but I couldn't get off of it. So when I had Piper, when I got pregnant, I quit taking it. Well, after I had her, I think I refilled it once. So I found a bottle of 64.
Wow.
I probably ate half of that just in court. And still, when she said, I sentence you to, she sentenced her until September 20th of 2030, her 25th birthday. And I fell down. I just remember I needed to run. I needed to get out of there. I was about to freak out. I had lost my mind in the courthouse a couple weeks prior. I didn't know that you're not allowed to freak out in a courthouse, in my defense. I have seen enough TV to know you can't do it in the courtroom or you get hauled off to jail. I didn't realize you can still go to jail in the courthouse.
Oh, so I didn't know that either. If you have fucking panic attack, emotional
I had
courthouse,
I had to go.
Still?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You can still get arrested.
Shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Neither did I until I was told how close I was to going to jail that day.
And this is the only outlet you also have to even voice your concerns at this point.
Yeah. Soraya's lawyer had told me to be really careful about the things that I post.
Right. This is very important what she told you.
Not to go to the media about it. It could hurt Soraya's case. Had I went to the media about it, this might not have happened. Yeah. So I did.
She instructed you
everything on my Facebook, whether it was hidden just so I could see it, and then I went and made everything public when we made Soraya's.
And this is important that Soraya's lawyer instructed you guys to stick to what the DA and the ADA were saying.
He told us when friends started asking, she told us, stick to the facts.
You're making air quotes.
Only,
stick to the facts,
Stick to the facts and only tell people what was on that police report.
Because if you go against that and you're talking around town saying, oh my God, it could fuck you guys up too.
Yes.
It could fuck up your relationship with the lawyers. If you're going, her lawyers and the DAs are saying this is what happened, and then you're going around town, which is a very small town, saying, I don't believe this is fucked up, something's wrong.
So the only thing that we told our circle was, exactly what was in the police report. Soraya tried to kill us last night. She was going to burn the house down. We stuck very to this script. Yeah. Everybody got the same
message. And you never believed any of it.
No. And I should have just.
Yeah, but I shouldn't just fought
the system.
You were
but
trusting.
At the same time,
you didn't
I didn't know what
you didn't know. You were putting your trust in people who.
These people are coming back out and they're like, "Well, this is what you told us back then," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know.
You told me to.
You guys all got the same generic bullshit response.
You have a lot of coercion in this.
You can also see the bullshit police report that They said in the police report, Manny remembered this too. They said that
Is your husband,
Saraya concentrated gas by the bedroom door and the window in our bedroom, which there was no gas in our room. It was out in the hallway, You'll see. You'll see. We're family now. You're coming over.
I'm
show you
flying
where
up
it
to
is.
Oregon next week. Yeah.
Yes. They said
got
that
it
the
wrong.
door was shut and locked from the inside so that we wouldn't be able to get out. And they said that Saraya took our phones. I had my phone that morning. I called Coos Health and Wellness. I'm like, how did this even get into this?
So even the
how did this
reports
stuff
are
even
wrong.
get into this report? Yeah, and the Coos Health and Wellness report, the probable cause report, and the police report are all different. All different. None of them are the same. None of the details are the same. Coos Health and Wellness said that Saraya poured gas all over us while we were in bed sleeping.
Now that's a different story. If she had doused you guys in gasoline.
Oh my God. Do you think we would be having this conversation?
No,
right
you would
now
be
if
like,
that
put
happened?
her in jail. Like,
absolutely.
But the fact that Coos Health and Wellness wrote that down on their report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just goes to show you how bad the misinformation was.
It's like a bad game of telephone. It's really like a bad game of telephone. The facts got so misconstrued. I don't even know how that happened.
I think that's what's like also so pressing about this case is like, this could happen to anybody.
Anybody.
Anybody. Small mental health crisis, not that her mental health crisis was small, but that the actions were so small that night could have so easily been solved that this system, I just can't imagine the feeling of helplessness and not having control over the situation that so easily could have been.
And it I don't want to like toot my horn or anything because I'm
toot
not
it.
that great.
You are. Stop it.
I have owned a coffee shop in my community for 8 fucking years. I have donated to every sheriff's event. Anytime anybody in my community needs a donation, we donate because it's the right thing to do, and I get off on the feels. I like to feel good. I don't care.
Yeah, you're Pisces. It
about
makes sense.
the fight. Yeah, I love doing things because it feels good. We do a suspended coffee program here. Have you heard of suspended coffee? It's a pay it forward type system where people can come in here. They can buy a coffee, a meal for somebody that is down on their luck. They do not have to be homeless. They can just be having a shitty day. And they can come in here and get a meal that's already paid for. We've done it for years. I love to give back to this community. And for them to do this to my daughter is so extra wrong.
Point.
Not that I should be treated any different, but I'm like, you people know me. Saraya's entire life has been documented on my business page. You guys have watched her grow up. You all know us.
It feels like they have been trying to make a point with this. Like they have doubled down on not believing that the mental health crisis is real. So was that even part of Kate's defense when Kate
didn't have a defense?
All it was she accepting really did a plea deal.
Was talk down the plea deal, and that was it. And then after court, she told us, "I'm sorry, this is not my area of expertise." And I took the case because she confessed. But when you go to Kate's page, her lawyer page, it says she is a criminal defense attorney.
And then she comes to you after the court case, after she gets 11-year sentence, which I'm sure was a surprise to her and Saraya, obviously. I'm not sure, like, did Saraya even understand what was happening?
They've continuously told us that in Oregon, children don't commit crimes. They're adjudicated of crimes.
Which means what?
Which means she could get out before 25. She
could
get out.
If she's reformed and she has good behavior, which is another big part of this, is that she's been told, we'll let you go. And you've been let on many times, like, oh, she's doing so well. She's a model fucking citizen. She's a great inmate, or, whatever they call.
She's done with the program in there. She finished it in record time. They said it was a year-long program. I believe she had it done in 8 months. The kid wants to come home. She wants out of there.
But they have to tell her. They told her
until
most recently.
She admits to what she did and accepts accountability, they will not
First of
transfer
all,
her.
She has woken up to realize a little bit how she's getting fucked in the system. So she's not going to make another false confession. She's not going to be coerced. So after she was sentenced, after she, I'm making air quotes, made a confession under psychosis, which is fucking illegal and should be thrown out. That's the same thing as like interviewing a fucking blacked out drunk person.
Amen.
And trying to use that shit in court. She woke up to realize this I've been charged with something I did not do and I don't believe in. Like you said, she doesn't even remember a lot of it.
Yep.
She remembers some feelings and some
Yep.
motivations.
She remembers wanting to kill herself, and she remembers thinking she was trying to wake us up, but she doesn't remember. It's so bits and pieces to her. So.
And she realized that she realized she's getting played in there, and that they want her to make another false confession by accepting accountability. And at this point, the most recent update is she is not going to falsely claim.
No, she will not do it. She will
she's
sit there.
Done with the program. She could potentially come home, but they are holding her there. And who's responsible for that?
She's supposed to go to a residential treatment center in Eugene. Soraya just told us yesterday that she wrote a letter to the director of the program, and the lady wrote her back. Soraya wanted to introduce herself and let her know, you know, she's a good kid. She really is thankful for the opportunity to get some help. Mm-hmm. And the woman wrote her back and said they've been talking about her and that she's looking forward to working with her.
What's that center?
It's called Looking Glass in Eugene.
Oregon?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a fucked up name that they.
Yeah. But her parole officer just she won't let her go.
And who's
her parole officer? Diana Pedregon. She has never one time advocated for Soraya, and that is her job. She is gung-ho. What happened on the police report happened on the police report. When other staff that work at this prison with Soraya have told us, we know she doesn't belong here.
So like right now with the hardest, I mean, there's like 2 levels or 3 levels to this, right? Is like number 1, holding the people accountable who fucked this up royally, right?
Yes.
It's the wellness center, it's the sheriff, it's the DA, the ADA and her defense. Then there is the people who are preventing her from getting more treatment, which is hitting up the parole officer, making sure that that gets corrected, that process gets changed. Then we also have this aspect of the higher ups. We've been reaching out to Kate Brown, who is the governor of Oregon. We've been reaching out to the mayor. We've been reaching out to anyone that's like a higher up in the system that has the ability to clear her name and clear her crimes and drop these charges. Like, I don't know what that reversal process would be like. It seems like, you know, we're cooking up a plan here of what we can do to get her out. But so it's like not only preventing this from happening again, but addressing the trauma that has already happened and making sure Soraya is set up for success. And in my opinion, legally, to state for the record, I think compensated for the fucking trauma that she has been through that will then pay for her treatment and therefore thereon beyond.
Yes.
Just that. So there's like a couple pieces to this injustice. But the point being is like, we are in the fucking middle of it. Mm-hmm. We are in the middle of it right now.
I also have the opportunity to talk to someone getting help to create Soraya's Law, which would prevent counties in Oregon from being able to send first-time non-violent mental health-related offenders to prison. They would have to offer them mental health help first. So I'm calling a lobbyist tomorrow. We still need to find a legislator to support the bill, but I have to have faith. Something has to change. You know, what they did to Soraya is so wrong, but it's become so much more than that because we've realized she's not the first. She's not the last.
And can we even pass that law while she's still in there? Like, doesn't she need to come out for this to be done?
I would love for her to be able to be there when this is signed into law, but I will fight like hell to get it done whether she's here or not.
Wow.
We cannot let this happen to another family.
Even going, that's what I'm saying is like, you're even looking so far ahead that you're saying, while my daughter is still in fucking jail, I am willing to make sure I'm doing the extra work to make sure that this does not happen.
I joined every systems of care committee that I could. Systems of care committees really break down the different systems and levels of care that are accessible to mentally ill, developmentally disabled, all kinds of different spectrums of illness, to break down the individual screw ups that these places have. You know, what happened with Soraya's case was they said it was textbook. People are so focused on their one job that they're not looking behind them to see, hey, did this person do A, B, and C? Nor are they having the foresight to say, okay, is this person going to know to do A, B, and C? And Soraya just fell through all the
entire
cracks.
cracks.
No referrals that were supposed to be put in for her came through. You know, we were trying to get more intensive therapy, DBT therapy.
Eye rapid
The one that we
movement.
talked
Yep.
about, the rapid eye movement.
EMDR. Yep.
They have a program called Kairos here. It's ran by wonderful people. They are so positive for these children, but you had to have a referral to get in there until the beginning of the year. Now a parent can just go there and sign their children up. You don't have to wait for the referral, but that wasn't an option for us when Soraya was home. So
it's like,
had she gotten into Kairos, this would not have happened, period.
So there is, let's go back to the sentencing. When did the sentencing happen?
October 17th, 2019.
So this is recent that this happened. And she has now she was transferred to the,
she was immediately taken to Oak Creek Correctional Facility.
Which is up in Albany, which is 3 hours away for you guys.
Yep. And when they took her, I had my own episode, my own breakdown. I think I called everybody in the world and told them I was going to kill them. I mean, I don't remember doing it. I was so out of it. So then I had to go deal with the Oregon State Police, prove I was not crazy before I was allowed to go visit my daughter.
Because you had a mental breakdown. You had an emotional breakdown.
My daughter was kidnapped illegally right in front of my face. And please find another mother that is not going to react the
and
same
that's
way.
Important to note, because I don't want people to think that you have just been idly standing by, letting the system, and you've just been following along. When you sense injustice, you have been fighting every fucking step of the way. And to expect to have what you thought was going to happen in the sentencing not happen, and then find out it is potentially till she's 25. I just want people to realize, like, I don't, I think the instinct is to go like, oh, you went crazy. Like, you aren't stable. You had a moment of your body took over this release. You needed to have this fucking release. And I think that is so fucking crucial to point out, that we need to allow you to have had that happen and still be a functional fucking mother, advocate,
I checked
human.
myself in to the hospital. I voluntarily committed myself. The doctor that came to talk to me held my hand. He cried with me. I was not a threat to myself or anybody else. I was despondent. My heart was broken. Soraya is the other half of my heart. How do you live without your heart? So he gave me a prescription of medicine and sent me home.
And you absolutely
and then CPS
should be allowed to
came
have that
again. And they're concerned about Piper, and Mom had a mental breakdown.
Oh my God.
Well, Piper was with both of her grandmas and her father. I mean, she was perfectly safe. She didn't even know where I was.
How are we going to punish Piper that they even would threaten that idea? Because now
they've threatened it more than once.
Fucking help. And you have been able to, like I said, have that happen and still be like, there needs to be room for both to exist. There needs to be room for you to have a fucking mental breakdown because your kid was fucking kidnapped, and for you to be a good mother and still advocate for her fucking release.
Right.
Both of that needs to fucking exist. If we can allow side tangent, but if we can allow Kobe to be a fucking sexual assaulter, a rapist, and be someone who has done incredible work in this world and community, and we can have space for that because he is a celebrity with money, we need to recognize that people are multi-fucking faceted. Right. And for you to, I think if you hadn't had that mental breakdown, I would question your sanity more.
Yeah, me too.
If you had your daughter taken from you and you didn't have a fucking mental breakdown, and I'd be like, well, maybe, as a fucking playing devil's advocate, I'd be like, well, maybe, this is good for Soraya to be, away from someone who's,
Oh, I've seen some comments that were pretty tasty. But
we don't feed the trolls, right?
I'm following the advice. I've not even let them know that I see them. But yeah, they get me right in the gut.
They want you to see it. And the most interesting thing that I've seen is on these stories that are like, the articles and stuff, the comments are so supportive in regard to like validating that Soraya was indeed bullied, like that she did have mental health issues. Like there have been people who are like, I went to school with her and it was not fair how bad she was treated. Like, there are people who are in the comments supporting you, but that doesn't stand out. That, I feel the same way. It's like, that shit rolls off of me. I take it in and I go, wow, thank you. And then I'm like, thank God I have this. But the bad ones fucking stick to you. And I told you,
there's
I said,
a lot
if you
more
don't let that shit go
than negative, but the negative is like, wow.
How can you say that? They don't recognize
you're
your
a
person.
human being. Do you have children?
It says more about them.
Are you a mom? Are you a dad?
Well, that's the other thing, is that your ADA, Karen McClintock, is a mother.
Exactly. And the arresting officer of Soraya, Aaron Gilbert, knew Soraya was friends with his daughters, knew that they were in the same class at school, knew of Soraya. He knew she was a good kid. And he still arrested her. I mean, it's that small of a town. Everybody knows each other.
So literally. you have this mental breakdown. You're able to recover from it, and you realize your daughter is 3 hours away, and you guys are given visiting rights. I mean, now we're entering 2020.
So we weren't allowed to see her for the orientation because my behavior cost us our visits. I had to prove I was sane.
Wow.
And then we started getting to go see her every weekend. We can visit on Saturdays and Sundays. It's about 6 hours of visiting that you can get. Wow. You're in a huge room with a whole bunch of other people. There's no privacy. The prison was actually really good. They didn't let the girls see each other for almost 6 months.
Who?
And once Piper and Soraya.
Wow.
We got to see them, but they wouldn't let her see Piper. They didn't know if seeing Piper was going to trigger Soraya to go off the deep end, and vice versa with Piper. And I kept telling them, no, you're causing more damage by they're 10 years apart. Their bond is probably like stronger than my bond with my kids. Soraya is Piper's and all.
You talk about Piper having this PTSD of police officers, that she actually
pukes.
Physically throws up.
The lease took my sister and they're not bringing her back. So she's not old enough to understand, she's 4. She can't look at one police officer and be like, oh, okay, that's not the one. She looks at them and sees them all the same.
And we talk about these, one bad apples, but it's so much fucking bigger than that. It is exactly like what we're talking about, where it's not a cop who's in a blue shirt that's, doing the punishing to a person who has committed a crime. This is a human being who knows your daughter, and his daughter is friends with your daughter. Yeah. Like, this is a human being who has put his emotional and mental bias involved in the actions that they are taking. And I think that's what's important to note, is like, all of these people it's almost like, because they fucked up and there was injustice, they have doubled down. And everyone that I've talked to, like, media wise, has said, like, Oregon is the fucking worst at this. Like, they will never admit they were wrong. Yep. And I think that's why Kate Brown has not came out yet. Like, I've been tweeting at her, I've been Instagramming her. Like, I don't think we're going to be able to prove that they have done wrong, because even recently, I mean, maybe we can get into this in a second. Let me rewind before I get into the fucked up shit about the system. So you're visiting Soraya on the weekends. Yep. We're now in 2020.
We haven't been able to see her since March 13th was the last time, because of COVID. Yep.
And has much changed beyond the back and forth of, like, she's allowed to go, but she has to admit she's done wrong. Like, we're thinking about a residential facility. She's going to stay here. Like, has there been anything other, like, big dramatic that has happened this year?
She was supposed to be leaving not once, but twice. We've been told she's about to get transferred. Right when COVID first started in March, her parole officer got a hold of me and told me she doesn't think Soraya's quite ready yet. She's afraid of the economy going back into recession, and then inpatient facilities not taking any new kids in there. So she was getting Soraya on the list to get her into somewhere. She's been accepted into somewhere, and Diana won't let her go. That doesn't make any sense.
And there had been a time back last year where you actually got another defense attorney to look at the case as a potential. You've had this Facebook page where you said, fuck it, I'm putting everything out there. After she got sentenced, you said, fuck it, I'm putting everything out there. So there was even a time where another prosecutor or another defense attorney looked at this and was like, we're going to try and help, and then sent everything back to you.
Yes.
And was like,
and that they were appointed from the prison. They were part of, so she got an attorney, she got legal representation from Lewis and Clark Law School, who said that they put in an appeal. I don't think they ever did. Then her file went to Youth Rights and Justice in Portland, And they said, there's nothing that they can do. We need a new we need a criminal trial attorney.
So
And
that's the other big thing is like, so many people are like, why doesn't she just file an appeal? Why doesn't her mom just file an appeal? That's like the next step. When we did our telethon last week, we got to the very high courts and they were so frustrated because so many people had called and they kept saying, we keep telling her she needs to file an appeal. Like if
an appeal isn't that easy though. An appeal means that you have new evidence in the case, but there is no new evidence in the case. They had all the facts then. So
we can't just say, we don't like
me
this. We want to do it over. It's like, no,
what
you have to
they did here to my friend Nick McGuffin.
Wow. You know him?
Oh yeah, I know
Holy
Nick.
Shit. I was going to talk about that next.
I know Nick. I used to pump his gas when I first moved here. Oregon, you can't pump your own gas in this state. Yeah. It's pumped for you. I'm like, ugh. I'm from northern Minnesota. My parents never pumped their own gas. I've done this forever. So it was an easy job. He spent 10 years of his life in prison when they knew that the DNA didn't match him.
So let's talk about this.
Crime.
We're bringing back, okay, so last week on our telethon, we bombarded the office of the ADA of Karen McClintock, and she panicked and called the DA, who's her boss, who is Paul Frazier.
Yes.
Who, if you look, you take one Reddit search on this guy and everyone will tell you that the town fucking is terrified of him and knows he's an asshole. And Shannon sent me a story that actually is very recent, and I will put it linked below, that I think everyone needs to watch because you will actually see Paul in it, about the case of Nick McGuffin. If you just look it up, very bullet pointed story. His girlfriend went missing back when they were in high school, and every evidence points to that she was abducted by out-of-towners who came through. Her shoes were found in different places of the state. And, it's this crazy story. ABC 2020 did a very long, 6-part thing. I highly recommend everyone go watch it because the Innocence Project actually had to come in and do the work to get him released. But this man was picked up by fucking Paul Frazier, the DA, and told that he was the murderer. They had no physical evidence. They had no witness. They had no testimony. I mean, watching,
other than he dated her when they were 15.
Yeah, and that he was he was hooking up with another girl who they kissed, and it was high school drama. And they took that and fucking ran with it. And they didn't charge him with murder in the first degree, which was intent to harm, but they charged him with manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter or something where it was he didn't mean to do it. But he spent 10 years in jail because of Paul Frazier saying that he was the one who did this, when they had DNA evidence on her shoes that were missing, that I was telling you about, that matched a different person.
Yep.
It did not match Nick McGuffin. Innocence Project came in and said, what the fuck? Fucking scooped all of their shit up. And to this day, Paul Frazier, again, is doing exactly what they did to Soraya, where he is doubling down because they will not admit that they fucked up. And they are saying, well, just because his DNA isn't on the shoe doesn't mean he wasn't involved or didn't do it. And he was released from prison in February of this year, I believe.
Yeah,
after
been
serving
recent.
10 fucking years. This fucking DA, Paul Frazier. And listen to this. I did a little bit of research on him too. And in 2011, Paul Frazier's son was 17 years old at the time, Jacob Frazier, who you can't find anywhere on Facebook because he's hidden his life, gang raped with his friends, a 13-year-old girl. The 13-year-old girl admitted that she said she told them she was 15, but she was 13. They raped her. It doesn't matter what age she was. They raped her. He was charged with the assault and the rape of a minor. It is mandatory in Oregon for that charge to serve 75 months minimum in prison. And Paul Frazier got his son to not have to serve a single day in jail, and instead took 3 years probation, and was promised if he completed the probation successfully, his entire record would be clean, which it was. Meanwhile, his two buddies who also gang raped her are the only two faces of this case that you can find in the media. There are no photos of Jacob. There are no photos of his mugshot or arrest. But the other two guys, you can find everything on.
They transferred Jacob to Douglas County, which is the county right next door because his dad was the DA. But you can't tell us that they don't run in the same circle. That was a mandatory sentence. There was no
This is back in 2011.
mandatory.
If
Yeah.
this was happening today, I maybe think it still would have gotten away because it's such a small town and the system's so fucked. But imagine that happening today. That is exactly like the Brock Turner case.
Yes.
Brock Turner went to jail for 3 months. His son did not even fucking serve time. And guess what? He has 5 kids. 2 of them, the older sons, also back in 1999, were driving home from a Valentine's Day double date. His 2 sons had 2 girls on dates with them, and they were driving home from a Valentine's Day date. The public has reason to believe that possibly they were drinking because it was a Valentine's Day dinner date. And the car, I'm making air quotes, hydroplaned, and they crashed, and the 2 girls died. And his sons walked away completely fine. And there was never a case into the car crash. The 2 girls' memorials and obituaries are very hard to find. There's very little information on the crash itself because this was 1999. And then one of his sons that was in that car crash that walked away completely fine later did die in a car crash. So if that doesn't fucking give you karma, I am sorry, but this guy, Paul Frazier, does not need to be in fucking charge. He does not need to have any power. He does not need to be instructing any ADAs or assistants to be put in charge. If that's who Karen McClintock is taking orders from, we need to address that issue seriously. So maybe like wrapping up, bringing it up to today, I want to talk about how now you and I got connected and the media attention that all of a sudden, you've talked about this on the interviews in your local towns reports that you think it's very unfortunate that George Floyd had to fucking die. Breonna Taylor had to fucking die.
Yep.
And Ahmaud Arbery had to fucking die to have people give a shit about Soraya. But you are so grateful and you are so, acknowledging that you are so sensitive to that because of that people are fucking waking up to it and becoming emotionally attached to it.
I think that's the only reason that people are finally recognizing it, and it shouldn't have taken that. And I feel bittersweet being so grateful to these people, but so sad at the same time that they paid a price they should have never had to pay. But if they hadn't, all of these other cases would not be coming out.
Exactly. It had to take a catalyst.
Or Elijah.
Oh my God.
I can't even read his story without wanting to vomit. I can't listen to his last words. I have a nephew that is very autistic, and I've wondered if that was him walking down the street. Yeah. But he's white, so he wouldn't have had to worry about it.
Exactly. So, you've really upticked the justice in the media. You've had this Facebook page, Justice for the number 4 Soraya on Facebook. And tell me about the first wave of attention that came recently that you saw.
We've had one wave of attention before when I first started reaching out to the senators. I believe the senators must have called and spoke with Paul Frazier, and any semblance of help that we were going to get from them went out the window. They said that it was a matter of public safety and that we needed to contact an attorney. I met a couple people down here protesting. I made a sign for Soraya that said, "My daughter's life matters, my daughter's future matters, and Black Lives Matter," with a huge picture that said, "Do all lives still matter?" asking for a kid in a cage. Okay, it's got this really beautiful Black woman on it, and when I look at her, all I see is Soraya in 10 years out, hopefully not protesting for the same exact thing, but using her voice to help change the system. So it started getting shared on social media. We finally got some Black representation involved. That really helped propel it through the roof. Was people just like Soraya seeing what happened and not having, they had the balls to stand up with us and be like, okay, this is. And
they did not have to, and they did not have to take on any more emotional labor, but that was a big part of getting it through to people. Yeah.
I social media, this cute girl did a TikTok video, and then all of a sudden Kelsey does a TikTok video, and all of my friends are like,
so silly.
It's being shared. I have a friend, Octavia, she has been such a staunch voice for us in
Yeah.
the community. She does TikTok videos and all of this stuff. And it's really, you know, I guess they would call me a millennial. I'm almost 40. Am I the millennial?
You're a millennial.
Generation?
Yeah.
These Generation Z have saved our ass.
Saved us.
These
We talk about that every fucking week.
20-something-year-old kids, you know, babies to me,
Yep.
they're half my age, come out of the woodwork, and they're not afraid to stand up to injustice the way that people my age have been taught. You respect authority, you don't question it.
Oh, hell
you
no.
know,
We're
you
fucking
just
shaking shit up.
Yes, I'm so appreciative for that.
Me
because
too.
What
I'm
happened
like,
to
they're
Soraya is
bold.
wrong. They
Yeah.
are bold. They're very
And so
bold,
the
and I'm
Facebook page
grateful.
has grown, and that is like kind of the place where we've been sending people, but linked below is going to be a change.org petition.
Yes.
And we are going to get signatures, and we are going to demand that people take accountability. There's also going to be a GoFundMe page, because during this entire thing, you have not asked for a single cent. In fact, when I brought it up, you shuddered at the idea, you pushed the help away, and you said, I do not want people to put their money unless they know exactly where every single penny is going. And
Amen.
we have found someone that is willing to help us legally. We have found a couple big news sites that are willing to look into this with us. And so we have set up a GoFundMe, because when this happens, and our number one priority right now off camera that you and I are working on is getting you an attorney who will fucking fight for this. And this is not going to be cheap. And we are going to, this GoFundMe is going directly to that. And anything else is going to be going directly to Soraya's treatment and care, and making sure everyone's mental health and well-being, to Piper, to you, making sure everyone is getting the right care, reflecting and respecting the trauma that has happened, and doing everything we can to correct it. So we've got that. We've got the Facebook page. We're asking people to use the hashtag Justice for Soraya, again with the number 4, so that we can have people click on it. We've got very specific representatives. We have a list that, oh my gosh, this girl named Katie, who joined our telethon the other day, made a fucking Excel spreadsheet of all the people's names and numbers.
With a checklist.
This girl went in. Katie, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Katie.
I think her name's Katie Baker. She made that. You posted it to the Facebook page. There is updates happening every single day. And me and a film crew are coming up there next weekend to film this, and we want to amplify this and get this as loud as fucking possible, because our biggest priority right now is getting Soraya to a treatment center, period, where she's not treated like a fucking prisoner. And then once that is cool, then we go into the getting justice and the reparations, and then we go into, you know, changing the fucking system for good. Which, how is this going so out of order? That just goes to show you how frustrating it's been. But again, like, hearing you and your humanization of this, and your love for your daughter, and the strength that I know you do not feel, that you do not have, because you feel like you are not the hero, you're just doing what you do because you love your daughter. I want you to know that you have so many fucking people who support you and love you and want to see you happy and well. And the fact that you're able to sit here and smile and talk to so many news stations and tell this story over and over again. I look up to you. Your strength and your resilience is so, I don't know how you do it, but I love you.
Kelsey. I love you too.
I love you like family already. We are going to figure this out. I want the confidants to rally behind you. I want us to scream this from the fucking rooftops. I want your frustration that you have felt every single fucking day in your chest and in your stomach and in your heart to be released and heard and carried by other people. I want to take this burden from you, and I want so many things, but overall I want you to know how important what you are doing is.
Thank you.
That you are going to change the fucking world, that you're going to change the fucking system. And because you have such a good heart, and you have been there to support her from the day of her coming out sexually, from her identity issues to her mental health, because you have been a good mother, is the reason why all of this is going to change, and the reason why this even matters. And so that's my, like, I got to compliment you, because I need you to know this, but you actually are going to a protest now today.
We are.
In your town, which is going to be a very big deal, because it is for Alonzo Tucker, who was the only documented Black man that was lynched in Coos County which happened
in the whole state.
In the whole
He's
state.
the only documented black man to be lynched in the entire
but which
state.
we know is not fucking.
And it happened here. They just weren't documented. We know it wasn't the only one.
And so
but he's the only documented. He was a boxer and he was headed home to his wife. All he did wrong was walk through this town. And they killed him. So we're gonna have a table set up for Alonzo Tucker. We did have a change.org petition for him, and we did hit the amount of signatures that we needed. So we're fighting with the city. We would like to see a statue of Alonzo Tucker.
Right, absolutely.
Something more than just a plaque that, it's not like nobody's blaming the people that are here now in the city now.
But they fucking
But
should.
Until you understand it, accept it, take responsibility in whatever capacity you can, and you memorialize the guy, then you can move forward. Then you can move forward from that.
And
so
just hearing
for Soraya.
Yeah. So this is coming out the day after this. So we'll have an update on how that protest went. But obviously, like the confidants, if you've already just even heard like how that town is and the fact that they're doing this is like, the fact that you even have emotional space to be taking this on too it just goes to again show you. Yeah, you're doing it because it's right and it's the right thing to fucking do. So wrapping up because I know you have to go. If there's anything else that you want to plug, I mean, we've got the change.org, the GoFundMe, the Facebook page, Amplify.
She has an Instagram also. There's an Instagram, Justice for Soraya, that's being ran by a really nice girl named Chelsea. I'm going to meet her today. I'm really excited.
You are?
Yeah, I haven't got
Tell
to meet
her
her
I said
yet.
hi. Take a picture. She and I have been connecting too.
I'm going to take a lot of video
for
you guys,
for me,
whatever you need it for. I'm going to try and take as much. There's supposed to be allies coming from all over the state, so we'll see how it turns out. We need it. As soon as we announced our counter protest were announced, there's going to be kids here. We are peaceful. We're not trying to fight. We're not burning or looting or destroying. We're just trying to educate and raise awareness.
And they're going to come and
really
try and silence that.
Yeah. I have a funny feeling.
Yeah. Please keep me updated and please stay safe. And of course, confidence is going to be something that I'm talking about for a long time and that you can find more information on my social media as well. Shannon, thank you so much. I know I'm going to talk to you later, but I just want to say like the confidants are behind you. And thank you so much for giving us 2 hours of your time. To
no
talk
problem.
About this.
Hey, can I take a picture for my Facebook? Like, oh my God.
Of course.
Because
let's do this. Wait, let me go get my sign. Hold on.
Val, you hear your name, Val? She'll be listening tomorrow.
Thank you for listening, Val. I love you.
She adores you.
Oh God, Val, thank you.
There's a shout out.
Hold on, let me get my sign. Hold on.
Val Drays. She's gonna have a kitten.
Okay, we made this sign, so this is good for the podcast. I fucked up the number for the senator, but the point is, it's just.
Oh yes, yes. Okay, smile. I'm gonna put that on my Facebook. Like, hey guys.
I love it, and please go look at that Facebook page, you guys, because that's where it's gonna be most updated. Confidence. I love you. Please, Justice for Soraya. Soraya. # Justice for Soraya. Okay, we'll see you next week.